Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Today we're diving into a seriously wild theory that might just have you rethinking everything you know about the fated romance of Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. That's right, we're asking the question, did Ron Weasley use the Imperius Curse on Hermione Granger to make her fall in love with him? Yes, you heard me. This theory, which popped up on Reddit several years ago, suggests that Ron might have taken a seriously dark turn in his quest to win Hermione's heart. Now, before we get too deep into it, there's one incredibly important thing to note. This theory was presented by Reddit user Emperor Death Bunny, who very explicitly stated that the theory is solely based on the 8 Harry Potter films. It does not take the books into account. This is clearly due to the vast discrepancies between the movies and the books, especially for characters like Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. As you may recall, I've gone into great detail about how movie Ron and movie Hermione are very different from their book counterparts. If you've yet to check these videos out, be sure to head over to 4 huge differences between movie and book Ron Weasley, and 3 major differences between book and movie Hermione after you've watched today's video. In any case, while we analyze the theory of whether or not Ron used the Imperius Curse on Hermione to make her love him, it's imperative that we keep that very important detail in mind. We are only considering movie Ron, who is a much different character than book Ron. Now, let's dive in. For those who may need a bit of a refresher, the Imperius Curse is one of the 3 unforgivable curses in the wizarding world, the other 2 being the Cruciatus Curse and the Killing Curse. To cast the Imperius Curse, the witch or wizard uses the incantation Imperio, which gives the caster complete control over their target's actions. Obviously, this means an evil or dark wizard could put a rather decent person under their spell and make them do things that person would otherwise never do. A great example of this is in the Goblet of Fire, when Barty Crouch Jr. puts Victor Crumb under the Imperius Curse and has him attack Fleur Delacour and Cedric Diggory with the Cruciatus Curse as they attempt to complete the 3rd and final task in the maze during the Triwizard Tournament. While these 3 champions were certainly competitive, there's no doubt that Crumb would never have used the Torture Curse on his fellow competitors if he hadn't been forced to. So, as you can see, the Imperius Curse is incredibly dangerous, which is why, as of 1717, it was deemed unforgivable and therefore quite illegal. With its criminal classification, the use of any unforgivable curse, including the Imperius Curse, became punishable by life imprisonment in Azkaban. Which brings us to the theory in question. Could Ron really have used this terrible curse on Hermione, someone he claimed to love? It's true that, in the films, Hermione and Harry seem to get on better than Hermione and Ron ever do, which has led many fans of the movies to question the validity of their romantic relationship. For, when considering all the facts presented by the 8 films, there are quite a few reasons as to why they seem ill-matched. They're constantly bickering, they have clashing personalities, and Hermione's somewhat sudden romantic interest in Ron feels a little, well, wrong. I mean, was anyone else a little taken aback when they suddenly started making out in the Chamber of Secrets during the Battle of Hogwarts in the Deathly Hallows Part 2? Could this rather abrupt shift in Hermione's affections have been because Ron magically forced her to have feelings for him? Let's break down the theory a little further. Point 1. Ron and Hermione's historically rough relationship. First and foremost, the Reddit theory points out just how much Ron and Hermione don't seem to like each other. From the first film onward, they're always bickering, whether it's about Scabbers and Crookshanks, Ron's lack of ambition, or Hermione's obsessive studying habits. Their arguments often felt less like romantic tension and a lot more like hatred and resentment. Even before Ron and Hermione get sorted into Gryffindor together, Ron was already saying ruthless things about her, whispering to Harry, "Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it." Later, in the Philosopher's Stone, he then went on to openly mock Hermione, even though she was the only student in their class to have successfully performed the levitation charm on a feather. And over the years, things didn't really seem to improve all that much, like when Professor Snape called Hermione an insufferable know-it-all in their 3rd year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and Ron readily agreed with him, saying, "He's got a point, you know." Point 2. The trio's unprecedented exposure to dark magic. The theory also suggests that Ron's exposure to dark magic during the series may have rubbed off on him. Considering how impacted he seemed to be by the locket Horcrux that the 3 friends took turns wearing around their necks in Deathly Hallows Part 1, he may have been the most susceptible to dark magic out of the trio. Add to that the fact that students in Harry's year were all shown how to perform the unforgivable curses, which was not standard curriculum for 4th years, but was entirely due to a Death Eater in disguise being their professor, and you can begin to see how maybe Ron had a much stronger inclination and aptitude for performing dark magic than he let on. In fact, Ron actually shared in that same Defense Against the Dark Arts class with fake Professor Moody that he learned the Imperius Curse before the lesson from his father. This suggests that Ron had a familiarity with the curse for a long while, and perhaps understood it far better than we could have ever imagined, which we then see him actually prove when he quite successfully cast the Imperius Curse on a Gringotts goblin, after the water from the thief's downfall removed the effects of Harry's previous Imperius Curse during the trio's break into the bank during the Deathly Hallows Part 1. So, feeling overshadowed by Harry and frustrated by Hermione's overall lack of interest in him, which makes sense since he was terrible to her, could he have resorted to secretly using this curse that he seemed to have secretly mastered to manipulate her feelings? Point 3. Hermione's sudden change of heart. Finally, there's Hermione and her romantic interests. The theory claims that her feelings for Ron seem to come out of nowhere, particularly in the later films. Sure, she gets upset when he leaves during the Horcrux hunt, but her shift toward being in love with Ron, culminating in that awkward kiss during the Battle of Hogwarts that I already mentioned, feels rather sudden and even uncharacteristic to some fans. In fact, there are many moments in which it seems a lot more likely that she's romantically into Harry. Whenever it's the three of them, Harry and Hermione are often the first to embrace. This happens at the beginning of various school years and after Hermione is cured after being petrified by the Chamber of Secrets basilisk. Hermione even goes out of her way to find Harry in the Champions Tent during the Triwizard Tournament and gives him what can only be described as an intense embrace. And let's not forget that Professor Dumbledore himself even asked Harry if there was anything going on between the two, or that odd dance in the tent in the woods that Hermione and Harry have during the Deathly Hallows Part 1, or the fact that when Harry discovers he must die at the hands of Voldemort in Part 2, it's only Hermione that hugs him goodbye. Okay, so there are a lot of instances in which it seemed like Hermione may have preferred the affections of Harry over Ron. But does all this truly hold up in regards to this particular theory? Sure, all these examples prove that Ron was a dick throughout most of their years together at Hogwarts. He was definitely a jealous git that certainly didn't know how to express his feelings for Hermione. I mean, remember his uncouth behavior with Lavender Brown? And he was definitely jealous of Harry from time to time. And Hermione did care deeply for Harry. However, that doesn't mean that Ron would have or even could have used the Imperius Curse on her. Why? Well, for starters, Hermione is a genius. Often celebrated as the smartest witch in their year, it seems unlikely that Ron could have overpowered Hermione with magical skills. Period. She disarmed Ron in one elegant move during their Dumbledore's army duel. She also proved that she's able to perform far more complex magic than Ron on a number of occasions, making it seem rather unlikely that he would have been able to get the upper hand over her. And say that he managed it once, I don't believe for a second that she wouldn't have been able to outsmart him at the first opportunity and break his hold over her. Then there's the fact that, while Ron's behavior toward the supposed girl of his dreams was, as we've well discussed, moronic, he most certainly isn't a dark wizard. Movie Ron has flaws, a lot of them. He's jealous, he's insecure, and he's got a temper. But thinking that would make him someone who would use an unforgivable curse, on Hermione no less, doesn't quite add up. His relationships are important to him. He cares deeply for his family and his friends, even though he may not always know how to show it. At his core, Ron is loyal and kind-hearted. Using dark magic to force Hermione into loving him just doesn't fit. In terms of the pair's relationship, they do argue a lot, and their chemistry in the films is not as strong as it's made out to be in the books. But their relationship is one that grew over many years of friendship and a lot of shared trauma. By the time they finally kiss in the Deathly Hallows Part 2, the foundation of their romantic connection has been built over 7 years, and it would seem that Hermione loves Ron because he's brave, funny, and caring, not because he's waving a wand around saying Imperio. So, did Ron use the Imperius Curse on Hermione? The answer is almost certainly no. And with that, we've come to the end of today's video. What do you think? Do you buy this theory, or do you think Ron and Hermione's love story is genuine? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, It does not do to dwell on dreams and to forget to live.